Hey guys, how are you? So, I have the video for this week. I was supposed to come and do the video last week, but her ladyship butted her big hoop skirts in. But I got the video this week. So, I finally finished the Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman. And I have thoughts. We all know what that means. But before I give you my thoughts, remember, if you want to support us, there is our shop where we have books and writing services. Unfortunately, we can't ship to the US on our shop. You would have to use one of the US-based retailers that cover our stock our books. So like Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whatever it is that you use, you can get them there. That's just US people. Though anyone, anywhere can get them those sorts of places. So that's cool. There is also our Redbubble shop where we have over 100 designs. So if you want to support us, you can support us there. If you want to support us without spending any bread, that's cool, man. That's cool. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. So, I have thoughts. We all know what I have thoughts means. And I've had too many books in a row where I have had thoughts. I'm not liking this. Why everyone else gets enjoyable books and I keep getting things that are like, oh, I have thoughts. The book I have thoughts about is an Angela Carter. And this should have been, okay, awesome. I like Angela Carter. And so I'm really annoyed that I have thoughts. Because I was expecting to just have, oh, okay, I'll sit here, I'll have a chill time, sit in my garden, read a book, enjoy myself, and thoughts. So, if you don't know this novel is from the early 70s. The Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman. It takes place in an unknown South American country, in an unnamed South American city, where the narrator is recounting the story of his youth, where the mysterious Dr. Hoffman waged war against the city with his desire machines, these strange energy that allowed the subconscious desires of the citizens to come to life. So, and this terrorizes the city. People don't know what's real. People die. It's like the city is under siege and it's a nightmare. He is sent out into the countryside outside of the city to find, like, they get a trace on Dr. Hoffman, and he is sent out to find and kill Dr. Hoffman. This is a man called Desiderio. He's called Desiderio, which means to be desired. And so he goes out and he has this massive adventure, meets Dr. Hoffman's daughter in multiple guises, has multiple adventures, eventually gets there and kills Dr. Hoffman, which is not giving anything away because he tells us at the beginning that he killed Dr. Hoffman. So, and saves the city because he's a hero, and so he's writing the story about how this has happened. So it's a very surreal book in terms of a lot of the imagery in it is very surreal. It's very deliberately like that. It's the idea of these subconscious desires coming forth. And of course, being subconscious desires, are they all nice? No, they're awful. They're the horrible things that you keep to yourself because, you know, it's not really socially acceptable. Most of these desires, and I think this is something that a lot of, when I have seen people talk about this, increasingly people get a bit at it and a bit squeamish at it because it is examining, which you expect with Angela Carter, it's examining misogyny, and it's examining male desire of women. So women are seen as the desired object. And it's playing on lots and lots of things. It's playing on Gulliver's Travels. It's playing on Le Conte de Hoffman, where the Offenbach opera, where Hoffman sees this woman across multiple adventures, and eventually she's a clockwork doll and various different things. It's a Offenbach operetta. It's also a series of the Conte de Hoffman, or the Tales of Hoffman, is also a German stories, fairy tale-y type stories of all these adventures of Hoffman. It's very similar to Baron Munchausen, I think it is, the Terry Gilliam film. Is very similar to Gulliver's Travels in that respect, where, you know, we get even in this, we get centaurs, not Winhams, and the centaurs are very bestial, unlike the Winhams of Gulliver. But we get all of these different sorts of things. By the end, we're getting James Bondy stuff. So we get all these different pastiche, all these different things, and the idea of female subjugation and male desire, and how male desire shapes female subjugation, pumped through multiple different cultures, is examined, which we would expect, having read The Sadian Women. This predates The Sadian Women, but The Sadian Women is absolutely the same sorts of things. So I don't really want to talk about that so much, because I've done a whole video on The Sadian Women and the way that misogyny and pornography dictate the ways in which women are depicted. This is examining that. It's not quite where The Sadian Women is, but it's the same sorts of ideas there. So I don't actually want to look at it in terms of that. What is interesting is that Angela Carter wrote this while she was in Japan, and part of the reason, part of what she noticed when she was in Japan, she had won a fellowship, or she'd won money and was able to go to Japan. And one of the things that she noticed was the extraordinarily overt misogyny of Japanese culture, especially in the late 60s, early 70s. So mostly this book is read along the lines of the surrealism and the commentary on misogyny and the depiction of women, because that's what we usually see with Angela Carter. And that's really strong through this book. And if that was all this book was doing, I would not have a problem with this. But I told you I had thoughts. I have annoyed people on the internet by telling them magical realism is not a form of fantasy. I have annoyed people with that, and I will continue to annoy people with that, because I stand by that. that magical realism, I hold a very strict, I have a very, very strict definition of magical realism, and magical realism must come from Latin America, Central and South American writers. That is where who owns magical realism. Why am I bringing that up? Angela Carter is clearly using magical realism in this. That is why it has a South American setting. Angela Carter walked back from her definition of this book as magical realism. By the 1980s, she was no longer using that term for this book. However, while she no longer actively identified this book as a work of magical realism, or any of her writing as magical realism, the fact that that was clearly, it is very obviously one of the forms that she is pastiching in this, is what caused problems for me, because there are things in this that no one who lives in the Southern Hemisphere would do. All the seasons are wrong. They're all ass backwards. They have winter at the beginning of the year where we have summer. They have Easter going into spring instead of Easter being in autumn. They have summer in the middle of the year. We're just coming out of winter right now. All the seasons are ass backwards. And you go say, oh, well, that's probably just someone from the Northern Hemisphere. Not really. That's my point. Okay. There are hedgerows in a South American country. Now, I'm not South American. I've never been to South America. I know there aren't hedgerows. Hedgerows are quintessentially English. I know that they do not exist in South America. Not a bit. There are no hedgerows in South America, okay? That bugged me. That bugged me so much, because every time I'm reading it, I keep coming up against things that throw me out of the book, and I can't reconcile it by saying, oh, it's part of the surrealism, because no, it's not. It's the narrator not realizing that the country, the foreign land that they are in is more foreign than they realize. Also, magical realism, proper magical realism from South and Central American writers always has a political message. And it is often a very political message and a very overt discussion of the actual issues occurring in their world. It is not vague. It is not just, ooh, these amazing things happen. It is a way of talking about tough, difficult things happening in the country. Okay? We've done a few of them. We've done actually quite a few pieces of magical realism now, and they are about politics. They are about so even some of the ones that seem most fantastical, like Kingdom of This World, which is about the Haitian rebellion, and how surreal that starts to look, is very, very grounded within the actual Haitian rebellion and the experience of the Haitian people. Okay? By not being attached to a real country, this becomes just a tool that is being misused. You've got a very, very precise tool that is used in skilled hands, knowledgeable hands, being misappropriated and misapplied. And why does this annoy me so much? Because in a book that is talking about politics, because it is talking about politics, it's talking about gender politics, it's talking about misogyny, it's talking about the role of women and the subjugation of women to male desire. The author has not recognized the fact that they have a power that they are now using to subjugate. And that power is that they are taking a colonial country's tools and misappropriating them. A post-colonial tool, and they are they come from a colonial country. So they are colonizing the literary objects of a people who have less power than them. Okay? That I have a problem with. I have a real problem with taking, because now I come also from a colonized country. I am part of the settler colonial I have settler colonial ancestry in Australia. Okay? But I am Australian. Okay? I can write about Australia with knowledge of Australia. Now, there is a power imbalance between an Australian and an English person, as in terms of ownership of those tools. So I'm writing my country with knowledge, with understanding, with appropriately culturally. I am understanding that as a settler, a descendant of settler colonialists, I cannot write certain stories, those most particularly those being Indigenous stories, because they are not mine to write. I have no rights to those stories, and nor would I want to, because that would be overstepping where from a place of power into a place of less power. If I impose and tell a story that should be told by an Indigenous Australian. However, if someone from England comes and imposes and tells a story that I should be telling, then they are using a power over my position. They are imposing their perception of Australia onto my country that is inappropriate. And they are able to do that because they feel, oh, I have the right to, because it's, ours. Okay? Doing that with magical realism is the same thing. It is saying, I'm not going to keep in my lane and write about using the enormous, the millennia old, rich history of Europe, which is all yours to play with. Like, nobody is going to say anything if you play with the entirety of the history and culture of Europe. You are European. You can do that. But no, you go over and say, oh, well, this is also mine to play with. No, that is not yours to play with. That is Central and South American writers to play with. That's their toy. Now, the inverse happens where somebody from the colonial can write back and can you do that back. But much like satire, it's because if you come from a colonial perspective compared to the colonizing country, they always have more power. So you can from less power play with their things. They have to share their toys. You don't have to share your toys. Okay? Just as in my country, Indigenous people are allowed to use our toys, novels, the English language, to tell stories that they want to use, but we cannot use their toys. We can't take things from them. They can take things from us because we have more power, so therefore we have to give a bit. If you are in a position of power, there are stories you can't tell. This book fails to recognize that inherent power. Some of the stories in this I found really difficult because they were othering. And so I found the invented Indigenous people, the river people, were really fetishized, that fetishized notion of Indigenous people. The Arab acrobats were also fetishized, and the pirates are again likewise fetishized, though they are a slightly different thing because they're sort of conjured up by one of the characters in the Desire Machine, as are the Africans. But at the same time, when you're reading it and it's like, you're a white woman. You're a white woman saying some of these things. It's not a great look. It's not a great look. There are stories you can't tell, especially if you are going to tell those stories in a way that is degrading, humiliating, full of stereotypes, or fetishizing. And for a writer who is so good at seeing how that happens in gender relations, I was really disappointed and surprised to see that she did not recognize the same power imbalance when it came to race relations. All of those instances, all of the instances that occur in the book could have been done in Europe, and you could have taken race out of it entirely. It would have been perhaps more difficult, and certain people would not have been quite so easily fetishized. But that is, I think, something you need to think about is, if I wouldn't fetishize this group, why am I doing it to this group? If this action would be seen in a negative light applied to white European people, what is it saying that I am then applying that to Arabic people or Indigenous people of South America or African people? It's probably something that in 1971 people didn't think about. In fact, it's something that when I've seen people talking about this, which is very, very rare, and any essays that I've looked at, actually nobody talks about race and this book. I've not seen anybody find the racial bits of this at all uncomfortable or discuss that. They're viewing it through a gender lens. And while the gender side of things is really strong, and I can understand why people are looking at it in that light, I do think that just because you decided to other your narrator doesn't mean you as an author get let off the hook for othering the characters in your book. I don't know if I'm seeing this because I noticed it from the power imbalance coming in via the colonial, and then started to notice these things. I don't know why I haven't seen any commentary on this. That's not to say that I just, that means this book is useless. It's not useless. It does say things, but it really lessened my enjoyment of it to see that. I really did find that like, oh, you went there. It's sort of like when you see blackface in an old movie and you're like, oh, could you have just not done that? That would be really nice. I'm going to skip that from now on. And it's like, yeah, okay, well, it's 100 years old, so okay, but I still don't necessarily like that all that much. This is a lot newer, but I think it's still, everyone has their blind spots, and I think that as an English woman of her generation, perhaps that was a blind spot. Perhaps in the 70s, putting anybody of different race into your book was radical, and people had not yet started to think about how that representation might affect people. But reading it now, I'm like, I'm glad you wrote the Sadian women, because if this was all we had, to me it's flawed. A lot of people say this is like one of her great books, and okay, I can see an element of that, but I will stand by, I think her great book is Wise Children, which is much more conventional, but at the same time, no, Wise Children is not more conventional, but it is within it's told within a world where she has absolute right to play in that world. She has an absolute right to play in that world, and because she has an absolute right to play in that world, it works far more effectively. I don't think she had a complete right to play in the world that this is, because it is not completely fantasy, but it's also not therefore a as well done as it could be, or as, yeah. So I mean, you all know I'm not a big fantasy reader, so it kind of icked me out. It kind of kept throwing me out by putting English countryside-y things in South America, and then it had these representations that were like, I'm not too sure about that, Ange. You really? I'm not going to let one book that I think didn't quite hit the mark go and sour me entirely on Angela Carter. I've liked the other things that I've read, but I was disappointed, especially since it came off the back of the other things that I've done lately that have not been that great. I've sort of had a run of books that have been a bit, when do I get a good book that I get to gush over? Because it's been a while. it's been a while since I had a book to really gush over. So, yeah. Would I recommend it? If you're a completist, if you haven't read Sadie and Women, yes. If you would rather, if you want to skip this, I would say read Sadie and Women, because you can skip it if you want. That works too. Look, I mean, a lot of people are kind of put off by a lot of the sexual stuff, and it's like, okay, I can understand why that will put you off. It is very Sadian. Let's put it that way. The sexual stuff is not, it's not nice sex. It's not sexy sex. It's Sadian sex. So it's pretty brutal a lot of the time, which is very deliberate. So I would say the Sadie and Women says everything that this says, but says it more comprehensively and without having to have some of those scenes. But if you want to have a look, have a look. I'm just going to say I had some issues with it. They're not the issues that everyone else had with it. I mean, frankly, I listened to so much Derek and Clive while I was sick. If anything was going to make me go, ew, it'd be Derek and Clive, but that it's not really that. It was actually the stuff that I found. It's like, that's not the greatest representation of race. Was the thing that turned me off. So it depends. Different things are going to affect different people. Anyway, that's the Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman. I didn't know exactly what to expect out of this. I was disappointed. I'm not 100% certain what I was expecting, but yeah, I was disappointed. There's a lot of stuff has gone into this, which, you know, if I hadn't been turned off, I would have really dug into. But by that, once I kept getting thrown out of the book because it kept not looking like South America in spite of insisting it was, I just was like, okay, well, we'll just read it and finish it, and then I'll read something else. Which is it's not really the highest recommendation I can give. I'm not going to plan anything for next. I'll have to have a think about it so that I actually get something I really want to read. That would be nice. Might do some more magical realism, because this ain't it. So anyway, that's the Infernal Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman. I wish I could have enjoyed it more. It's a shame. Have a read of it if you want. If you want to skip it, that's also fine. It's your life. No one forces you to read anything. And anyway, I will see you again sometime later with another book. Peace and love, guys. Peace and love. If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.